Keith, you're gonna have to. You just do this one. I'm not even gonna talk. No, I don't wanna.
I love the sound of that. You're just with me, guys.
It's gonna just be long monologue and then a long monologue, just like Malcolm and Marie. So this film was well, you know what? Let's just let our friend Iman Rodney talk us in, lead us in.
Yes, more my friend than yours. But Iman?
He likes me more.
Definitely me. Here we go, Iman.
Iman, my best friend.
Iman, you're my roommate. I'll let you live here.
Iman, you can be my best man.
Damn it.
So the film that I'm doing today is Malcolm and Marie. It's a film that I learned about in mid 2020. I picked this film because I thought it was something interesting that was a little bit outside the realm of movies that you guys did, especially giving your top 10s. And I just thought it would be an interesting pick for you guys to check out. It's also a pretty new movie that just dropped, so and it might not be on a lot of people's radars.
I take offense to that.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say? Like, I only like horseshit comedies?
Yeah, that makes sense. Iman, these are great points. Great points. We have a type of film.
Yeah,
we have
narrow,
a couple types of films that are developing on our Bluff Council page here. And happy to get a different kind of film. I think this movie is different in a lot of ways than a lot of the stuff we've spoken about so far. So this is a great recommendation, and I was very interested after seeing Iman's video because he has some really great questions that we'll hear in a little while. Very thoughtful questions.
Yes.
Very in-depth questions.
Yes, very, very true to Iman. Very astute gentleman about film and filmmaking. So he gets into it, so therefore we have to get into it.
Yeah, we're getting a little deep. I think we're going to get a little deep on this one for better and mostly worse.
Definitely worse. Definitely worse.
So the film, Malcolm and Marie.
Malcolm and Marie.
Came out in 2021, technically, I think, just in the last several months here. I think January.
Did it come out in 20... Really? I thought it came out in 2020.
Well, we'll look that up.
It's going to be on the screen.
Stars Zendaya and John David Washington. Written and directed...
Is it Zendaya or Zendaya?
What did I say?
Daya.
I said Daya?
I heard Daya.
Okay, we'll do two takes. Zendaya, it stars Zendaya. It's not Zendaya.
I think it's Zendaya.
My name is not Zendaya. My name is Zendaya.
It's Daya.
It's Daya?
Shame. Shame.
It's Daya. It's not Zendaya.
I thought it was Zendaya. I don't know. This whole time, I was just wondering why Spider-Man's girlfriend is really fucked up.
It's our last night in Europe, and I had this plan that I wanted to tell you.
Well, try slitting your wrist with a pair of nail scissors.
Iman, as we mentioned, has some really great questions, but his first question is pretty straightforward.
Best friend?
Super simple. What did you think about the film? Like, did you love it? Did you hate it? Which parts did you like? Which parts didn't you like?
Answer the man. What'd you think?
Well, that's a complicated answer, I think, which is...
Yes or no?
I didn't like it. I didn't really like it.
Wow.
I don't like almost all of it. And I'm sorry.
I'm blown away by that
Iman
answer.
never mentioned, much to his credit, whether or not he loved it or hated it or somewhere in between. So we don't even know how Iman feels. Maybe Iman hates this. I hope so. Because I'm about to shred it. No, like...
Why do you hate... I'm actually... Man, I'm sorry to jump in because I feel like, now I feel like I'm going to insult you when I thought I was going to compliment you. Knowing you so well, I feel like this is something I could have seen you write or something I could see you perform in. Like I could see you as the male lead in this in terms of your talents and strengths as I see them as an actor and talents and strengths as I see them as a writer. I saw a lot of you in this film, so I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm equal parts flattered and offended.
Yeah,
I'm flattered anytime anyone can see me in a movie, they can visualize me in a role. So I'm like, great, yes, great. I'm insulted that you think I would write something like this because here's the thing: I would have when I was 25, I don't know where to begin. I think the writing is really poor. I think the writing's the worst part of the movie.
No shit. I disagree wholeheartedly. I didn't think we were going to really fight about this one.
No, you were off. Watch it again, brother.
No, the writing is strong.
Oh, you don't want to go there.
Why is that?
Trust me, you don't.
Why is that?
Because even if you do, you're not thinking clearly.
I think I'm thinking clearly.
Trust me, you're not.
Well, I do have a slightly masochistic streak.
It is so heavy-handed. It is so on the nose. It is so on the nose. There is zero subtlety, and I felt like there was 3 people in this movie. It was Zendaya and John David Washington, and Sam Levinson was just also in the room. Like, I felt his presence in every moment of this movie, where as a director and as a writer, mostly as a writer, because I think a lot of the directing is very good. There's some really beautiful shots, so I'm not coming at him that hard. But I think the script is really, really, really bad. And I think it is, the way we talk about overly written things, I think this movie, oh my God. It's like, okay, so no one talks like this ever.
That's what makes you so fucking unique, right? That's what makes your contribution so much more significant, right? Get the entire fuck out of here. You're not the first broken girl I've known, fucked, or dated.
It's like, it's so performed and polished, and every line is so, like, John David Washington's had like 7 bourbons by the time you're an hour and a half into this thing, or 7 scotches, and he's making very perfect every word. There's no stammers. It's big words, huge vocabulary. Like, it's so unnatural, all of it. It's very Aaron Sorkin-y, which I know can be sort of a compliment in some times, but this is like, say this exactly as I wrote it. Like, I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize after every sentence.
I disagree. I think I like the writing. I felt it went on too long. I felt like these monologues went on too long. I think this film breaks the cardinal rule, or one of the cardinal rules about screenwriting, is you get in late and you leave early. You know, you give me less. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I feel like, or heard that, but I feel like that's a very common thing within screenwriters, in the business. I'm in the business. Shut up. Just let them think it. Let them think it. Yeah. I'm in the business.
He knows what he's talking about.
But I feel like the issues with the writing are only because of how much writing you got. But I don't blame him for that. I blame the situation, because there was a clear intent that this is going to be in a house because of COVID. We're never going to leave this space. Like, such a clear intention to do that. And he just filled that time. He filled 145 with it. So my complaint is not about the writing, although I see how you could think that, is that I feel like this should have been one of 2 things. This should have been 45 minutes and cut down a lot of these long dialogue, monologue type scenes, because they felt repetitive after a while. But either you just cut it down, or I thought maybe this would make a better series and make 20-minute episodes with these little, because for me it just kept like, oh, we're gonna fight, we're gonna make up, we're gonna fight, we're gonna make up, and I just feel like, didn't we just kind of get past this, and then we're gonna bring something back up, so I almost felt like maybe if you had to be a little bit more segmented and leave me with a little tease at the end, I might come back to 3 or 4 episodes of this and just like pick up where we left off. But I don't feel like the writing is poor. I just feel like it's too long. It's too much of the writing.
You don't think it's over? You don't think it's heavy-handed? You don't think it is exactly on the nose? They're like, you don't hear this writer. Like, this is a textbook example, and this is why I take offense to you saying I would write it, even though you're right, you're correct. Like, you're not wrong. But this is exactly my style for a long time, where it's like, I have these things I want to say, and I'm going to make these characters say it. And there's zero nuance to anything they say, even so much as this is a filmmaker speaking. Like, I'm going to make this character a filmmaker, and that person is going to say all of my thoughts.
Political films are exhausting.
You love political films.
She's not the ones the white woman from the LA Times calls political.
I'm sure she loves Do the Right Thing.
It made at a time when politics weren't cool. That's what made it so fucking revolutionary.
I liked it. I really like the directing of it. I am judging it based on the situation, and maybe I shouldn't. I think if you judge this movie based off of all movies, I don't like it as much because I feel very limited by the one house thing. This could have been a great story had it developed over time. If I spent more like figurative time with this couple over the course of their life, or 6 months, a year, something to give more context, see them go through ups and downs as a couple rather than just doing it all in one night, but that's the limitation of the production. So I forgive them for that. And I know that's one of Iman's questions, so we'll get to maybe that a little bit more. But overall, with that in mind, I really did enjoy it. I think there's some really strong things in this film.
I always think it's interesting, especially when movies are structured around something that is so different from the person who wrote or directed the film. And as you guys both being writers, what is it like for you to write a film about characters of color? And do you feel like it's an important necessity to write in the struggles that those characters deal with, as well as the culture that those characters come from, to really, create a rounded out character?
Well, Iman, this is a question.
It's a doozy.
It's a question. It's a really great question.
It's a poignant question.
Yes, and I'm fascinated to talk about it. Keith?
Do you want to go I feel like you should go first in this one.
So one of the reasons I think that this question is so apt is that, we're never here to brag about our own accomplishments because they are few, particularly in the industry. But I have written quite a few screenplays and have sold several for minimal money. This is not, again, we're not bragging at all. But one of my films was produced, a movie I wrote that they changed the title to All Between Us, and we made a movie years ago. The first screenplay I ever wrote was a Sacramento hood classic, Corruption.
Just gonna put this shit on YouTube or something, World Star or something, nigga. Look, it's on video, bro. Look. Real shit, my nigga. Ain't nobody playing with your money, bruh.
And these films were written by me and had almost entirely black casts. So I was writing, obviously, for black characters. And a number of the other screenplays I've written were for almost entirely black casts. And I think it's a fascinating subject matter because we should say, obviously, Sam Levinson, the writer and director of Malcolm and Marie, is a white guy. And he is... I think it's complicated because he's using these characters to kind of espouse what you can tell are his beliefs about a lot of like racial and identity politics within his own industry, the industry of film.
You can't hang everything on identity. You can't say that I brilliantly subverted this trope because I'm black, but I fell into this one because I'm a fucking man. Identities are constantly shifting.
And there's a lot of conversation that can be had about that, like whether that's good or bad or, neutral. But I will say, to answer Iman's question, I think I personally, obviously being so careful right now, I personally think that, like, stories are stories to an extent, and that anyone can, like myself, as a white appearing dude, as a half Latino white dude, can write a film featuring elements of stories for any race, for any type of person, as they can for any type of person themselves. I think that's a slippery slope. It's a dangerous ground to try to say, like, no, white people can only write white characters, and black people can only write black characters, and Chinese people can only write Chinese. Like that is the opposite of progress, I feel like.
But that feels a lot like the direction we're going. For right or wrong, it feels like you can't comment on me and my work or anything to do with me if you don't share my experience. It's no longer valid. So I wouldn't be surprised in the near future where it's, well, there's a gay Latino character. Well, we have to find a gay Latino person to write that character.
It's tricky. This is obviously very tricky. But I do think that writers, as one example, writers need to write. Artists need to be able to make art and tell stories. Myself personally, like when I wrote All Between Us, I think that was like, number one, it's a horrible film. Don't watch it. I'm not saying that begging for compliments either. Like, don't watch that movie. It's not good. It was a first draft that I wrote. I didn't have much contact with the people after that. It is bad.
He's just a real good, beautiful man.
So I'm about to nut bust and this bitch booty, right?
No disrespect to those filmmakers.
a little disrespect.
It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie.
We've all made them.
I would say that if I was to write another screenplay, which I'm sure I will, that won't just be an all-white cast, because that seems like it's problematic in its own way and probably not interesting, that I wouldn't personally write a story or write a character that whose point of the story or point of the movie was their racial experience, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not going to write a movie about a black guy where the whole movie is about him being black. Yeah. Like, that's not something that I'm going to do. Not because I don't think I should, but just because, like, I couldn't tell that story. I have no idea what that's like. I have no frame of reference for that. So that's where I'll kind of meet in the middle of that. You know what I mean?
It's a slippery slope when you start to identify who can and who can't do things. I just think inherently that's really tough. Now, there are definitely some exceptions to that rule, but in general, I just think it's tough to say you should or should not be creating a story, telling a story, because you don't specifically identify with a character or multiple characters because they're a very specific experience. I feel like as a writer, it's on you to do the research. It's on you to figure out what that experience is and for how to craft it, if it is that central to the theme. I don't want to write based on my assumptions on what I think a type of person would do. I think that's a losing formula. So I want to write based on character traits, an emotional journey that this character is going to go on. Who is this person? It doesn't matter. This character is not going to be dependent on their race, their gender, their age, that's not the point of the story. But to your point, I don't think writers should be the heart of the story be telling an experience that's not yours. That I tend to agree with.
Well, let's bring it back to Malcolm and Marie, but the last thing I want to say on this is I remember after writing All Between Us, and again, that was a first draft. It's a bad movie, and they sent it off, and people started reading it, and I had several people reach out to me separately, black people who were either friends of the producers that I was working with, or members of the production in some type of way. And they were very complimentary in the sense that they all said this specifically, that they like that the characters in the movie are these like successful, young, it's a black couple living in this beautiful loft in Los Angeles, and their race is not a focal point of the story. And I remember really being touched by that, because they're just like, their points were that so many of those types of stories have to feel like they have to try to integrate in, like, well, we have to kind of almost explain how these people are successful, or where did they get their money, or what did they overcome to get in that position. And these people were saying like, these people were saying like, no, it's just like, they're just people. They're just like people living,
and they have money. Like, what? Like,
it doesn't need to be explained. Shit. They're just a young, successful couple. And I think there's like, that meant a lot to me at that time, and I think that we're moving a little bit away from that energy, which seems counterproductive to me. But
and then, how do you feel this film did with that? Like, did they execute well enough for you to feel like, okay, like these people are, obviously coming from a certain community and representing that in a way that gives people enough insight into what their specific situation would be like for someone of that ethnicity? and socioeconomic, background.
As it pertains to Malcolm and Marie, I think it's fascinating because when we watched Iman's video first, before we watched the movie, I thought, oh, this would be such an interesting topic to speak about anyways. And then I was like, oh, so I assume the filmmaker is a white guy if he's telling, he has these two black cast members. And I thought, oh, that'll be interesting to watch. And then as the film started, I thought, I bet he won't go into like racial dynamics in this movie, but then he does. Like it's right out of the gate. And I was like, oh, and not only that, but it's a filmmaker, like putting his thoughts on the world through this black character.
The white guy from Variety loved it. The white guy from IndieWire loved it. The white woman from the LA Times, she really loved it. She kept saying, I'm the next Spike Lee.
And I thought that was really interesting. And I can see how it could be viewed as like problematic.
Do you know if the reception, and I don't, of this film is problematic? Like, are people in the Twitter sphere or whatever, are people pissed that this white guy is speaking on behalf of black culture or people? Or
I think it's kind of split. The movie's got 58% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was reading, I read a couple different reviews, and I think it bothers some people and doesn't bother others. Which I think is interesting is that what this man did, Sam Levinson, he kind of built in those conversations into the script, where it's like reviewers and critics criticizing a film for its politics or the identity, the racial, gender, sexual identity of its filmmaker. Like, so I get what he was doing there, and I kind of respect that part. Like, I was going to say,
I really loved the way that Zendaya broke down the Lego movie, the path of what would happen. You didn't like it.
I didn't love it. I just thought that part went on too long, and they were doing like, just have sex already. Like because this is the worst pillow talk of all time.
To a different part of you. Just start banging. What is he doing?
Well, no, I was like, Jesus Christ, how long are you guys going to talk about Legos while you're doing foreplay? It was just a lot.
But I just thought, all of it, I thought all of that stuff was super interesting to just hear in a film from a filmmaker about how your work is digested and like what people think it means. And it is predicated on who you are and making judgments of like, oh, I'm a white man, so now what does that mean for your work? But if I'm a black woman, well, now my work is completely different when it's exactly the same, just based on who I am and the interpretations of what you think I'm thinking. Like it is a really complex dynamic that very unique to, I guess, probably any art, but filmmaking specifically. Of like, what does it mean and how, what are you saying with this? The white savior trope and all that sort of, like, I just thought that was interesting. I enjoyed it from a complexity of a thought standpoint.
Yeah. To that point, I personally agreed, I think, with a lot of what that character was saying, what Malcolm was saying about film and about art and about expression. I just thought the writing was so on the nose and a little unnatural. Like it was so performative.
Don't you think it has to be if you're going to make this? I don't know how you could be more subtle. This guy is like an artist bearing his soul.
That is the mystery of art, of film. What drives someone to make something and fucking say something.
This film feels very authentic to a couple fighting over the course of a night. It does. It feels grounded in that sense. Like I can see a couple going through that's clearly dysfunctional and has their ups and downs and I love you, I hate you in the same sentence, and they're like, I want to murder you, but I also want to bang you, and I just like kind of these emotions are sort of mixed. Like you don't think you've never had nights like that? Like where you're
to that degree. I mean,
not to that degree. Not to that degree. I'm not saying this is a documentary.
That's a problem. I mean, we're talking about authenticity here. They're like they're going for fucking like the first fight is like, fuck you, your father hates you, you're a drug addict, kill yourself. Like, there's no place to go. Like, that's one of my biggest complaints in the structure of this film. Is like, each fight, including the first time, is like, so to the bone.
You're fucking delusional.
Like, Jesus Christ, y'all just gonna start here? You just start here so that then when it gets to the part where he's talking to her in the bathtub and recounting all the chicks he's banged, Kiki, over the years and shit, like, oh, that hurts? 15 minutes ago, he was just throwing the fact that you tried to slit your wrists in your face, and now this bothers you? Like, it was really too much. Like, it should have started with like a slight disagreement, a little nuance, a little subtlety.
Well, it does. I mean, I think it...
No, it just starts right away. It's so big. Like, each one of these sentences that they say to each other would lead to a breakup in basically any fucking relationship.
Don't be a fucking brat.
And don't fucking patronize me. And
You didn't
fuck
want it. You
you.
never wanted it because
You know
you were
what?
too
You
scared
are
to try and
fucking
fail.
ugly inside.
Oh, fuck you. Marie, when I met you, you were a fucking pilled out disaster.
You're a fucking featherweight. A level 1 boss. I can snap you like a twig.
How many films have we talked about that are concepts that you come up with about these two broken people who just can't quit each other, who just like, it's fucked up love, but it's their love. Like, I feel like you like those type of stories, but now you don't?
No,
That's exactly
I like
what
those
this
movies.
is.
I like those stories when they're well written and like realistically executed. This is not that. This is so on the fucking nose.
We should go to Iman's next question, because I feel like the fact that it's shot in the pandemic and they made a conscious decision, we're going to do it all in a house or whatever, like one location over 2 days or whatever they shot it, like all of those decisions based on the pandemic led to this story. And I feel like that's the biggest shortcoming of this story.
Being one of the first movies to be filmed in 2020 during the whole, pandemic, this was one of the first films, and it was like secretly filmed. This film is obviously something that like doesn't really speak to the time period at all. But I think it's interesting because the actual production of it is very locked to the year that it was created in, being that like the whole film is only in this one sort of space.
Because of the pandemic, the limitations that the pandemic have given us, well, given the filmmakers at that time, I think lead to a lot of the shortcomings of the story. I feel like if this film was told over the course of years within this couple's life, where it is more of a Blue Valentine, where you get a real stretch of these guys' lives, all of that goes away, but they just couldn't do it in this situation because of a pandemic. So I kind of forgive it for that. You do not.
No, because I still think my point stands, which is that it starts too big. Like their disagreement doesn't build slowly. It's just we're at 100 degrees. We're all the way up. We're cranked up to 11 right away, and we're going for blood right away. Like their first fight is incredibly vicious and incredibly cruel. So there's no place to go from there. And then it just started to feel very forced that, okay, now they kind of make up. Okay, the first time, okay, I guess they talked it out. And then all of a sudden they start having their Lego foreplay talk. And then, oh, no, now we said something that made me mad. And now, okay, we're fighting again. And then they make up very suddenly, and then they're fighting again. And then they make up even more suddenly, and then they're fighting again. It's like...
Yes. But
it's exhausting in a bad way.
But that's, I think, how many times did he say you're exhausting? I think that's the point of the character. And maybe you don't like it, and I didn't love it either. I felt some similar things that you're saying, but because that we just never leave that house, we never leave that time and space, it feels very redundant. It feels very like, okay, guys, but if there was opportunities to have that big blowout fight in the beginning, but then it's 6 months later, and you see a little bit of their lives unfolding and them kind of make up and whatever, it just feels a lot more distant, and then they have another vicious fight. The dialogue and stuff could still happen, the action can still happen, but you'd feel better from a viewer standpoint because you feel more time has passed. You feel more, but that's not this film's fault, that's the pandemic's fault.
That isn't. Whose fault is it then? Of course
it's the pandemic's fault. I just
don't tell the story like that.
But you have to because of the limitation. So then you're saying don't tell the story at all. You're saying don't make the film until after the pandemic.
Maybe. But like you can't just be like, well, it's not the film's fault that they made the film like this. Of course it is.
They had no choice. I don't think...
Then write a different story that makes sense with those limitations. He knew going in what this story was. You can't just be like, well, shit, this would have been really good if it wasn't the pandemic, well then make the movie that would be good in the pandemic if you're making a movie in a pandemic.
I think he thought the film, I think everybody thinks the film is good. I thought the film was good.
58%. Everybody does not think this film is good.
No, everybody in the film. Or working on the film. I'm sure they all thought, not everybody in general. Everybody, part of the film, I'm sure they all thought they made a good film. I'm sure they were proud of it.
They didn't make an awful film.
No,
Again,
but I think I think the pride comes with we tried to tell a great story with those limitations. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe they fell short in some regards, but I give them credit for it. I just look at it differently than you because you're a pessimist and I'm super optimistic in life in general.
Totally. Yeah. You are the most optimistic person in the world.
I just hate myself so much. I'm sunshine in a fucking bottle. Everyone knows that about me.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No, I agree. That's a compliment I'm more than willing to give the film. It's like, it's amazing that they pulled this off. Great job. But like, we're not in the business of patting each other on the back here to be like, this is a really great job. You did it. I know it's tough. Making movies is hard, regardless of when it is. Like,
That's true.
It's hard. Yes. So we're here to talk about the merits of individual films and what we think about them. That's not a pass. Like, you don't get an excuse. Like, they literally crafted this film during the pandemic. So they knew what, it's not like this was a script that existed before and then they had to change little things to make it fit for the pandemic, as far as I know. So y'all knew what you were getting into. Like, make a story that fits better for this format.
I disagree, but we disagree. You're stupid, I'm smart, and that's all. We need to keep moving on.
On that production standpoint, I was reading that there couldn't be more than 12 people on set at once, because this was still pretty early in the pandemic, where people were still figuring it out, and it seemed pretty crazy to make a movie, which, to Iman's point, they kind of did in secret. But I felt like you could feel that sometimes. The most egregious example, I just want to say this, is you see the boom mic in a shot.
Ooh, I've never seen it. I didn't see it, I missed it.
It's very subtle, but I saw it right away, and it's not like I look for these things. And there was just some inconsistencies, like she takes her eyelashes off, and then she gets in the bath, and then she has these huge eyelashes on. These are little things. But like, these are mistakes that you shouldn't make. Let's talk about the performances. Because this movie is 100% performance.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I'm going to go on a limb here and say you did not like them because you're a dick.
No, no. I was really excited. I was truly very excited to watch this movie when Iman recommended it, because I don't have a ton of experience with either of these actors. Zendaya, I basically only know from the Spider-Man movies. We tried to watch
Euphoria?
Yeah. Euphoria, which is Levinson is also heavily involved in that, the writer and director of this. The creator, I think, of that show. But I turned it off like halfway into the first episode, because it's like teenagers doing a lot of really graphic sex stuff, and it seemed really creepy. Like, I don't get.
You shouldn't be watching.
If you're a grown adult and you're watching this, you're watching Euphoria, and you're like, this is great. It's weird. It's creepy.
I've never seen it. I know she's critically acclaimed for it. Like she specifically is like, didn't she win awards and stuff?
Yeah, I think she was at least nominated for several things. She might be very good. But I'm just saying, it got weird really fast. Where it's like, oh, I'm 16 and she's giving a BJ, and it's just like it's really like graphic weird. It's like watching kids, like the movie. It's not enjoyable. Okay. So not for me. Anyways, so I thought, this is really, it'd be a great time to see her chops, see her talents, see her shine. And similarly with John David Washington, I think I've only ever seen him in Black Klansman.
God bless white America.
Which I think is a very, very good movie, but I didn't love his performance in that movie. And then Tenet, which I don't like at all, and I didn't love his performance in that movie particularly. So I thought, what a great showcase of these two performers for me to get to see them and get a better idea. One, I don't know that I got a better idea, because I think the writing, is so on the nose that it's hard for me to know if the parts I don't like about their performances are because of their performances or because of the writing that's very exact.
Because I know how you get weird around Taylor.
I do not get weird around Taylor.
You get meek.
Meek? Huh, really?
Well, you don't talk a lot.
Well, that's different from being meek.
What I will say is I think that Zendaya got better for me as it went. I thought the last several scenes, she was really, really good. I didn't like her as much at first, and I thought she was doing some of that like Mary Jane, like whatever, man, like looking. She kind of has like this hazy, looking off in the distance look a lot that I'm like, that's not necessary for this. But I thought her final monologues were really good and really affecting. I thought, okay, I see her talent. I think John David Washington is a very good actor, and I know that that's an unpopular opinion, but now I'm 3 movies in, and I haven't seen. I feel like I see him remembering his lines. Like I noticed that, and that's where I told Monique, I said, I can understand maybe why Iman, and then you just said, like you could see me in a role like this, because I'm not a great actor. Like I'm okay, but like that he's acting like I do. Like where I can see when I watch myself on film, I see myself remembering my lines sometimes. And I think, God, that's not good. And that's how I feel almost throughout this whole movie with John David Washington. Like I see him acting. And he so I didn't think he was that good, and I'm sorry.
I mean, you have a lot of apologizing to do across the board. So you can start with me and work your way down. I thought Zendaya was great. I thought he was really good too. I think she's better than him, but I thought he was good. I thought they had great chemistry together. I thought both of them were believable. I don't think either one of them, like, this is a transformative all-time great performance, you know, one that will go down in the history books type of performance, defining role performance. But I think they both did a really solid job for what was asked of them. And to carry a movie, same thing with Tom Hanks in Castaway, to carry, in these case, 100% of the movie, 80, 90, as an actor, as a performer, for 2 hours, hour and a half, that's a huge lift. That's a huge lift for 60% of people on Rotten Tomatoes to say yes to that. Like, I feel like that's an undervalued performance, just on the fact to not people to turn that off immediately after a half hour, to be like, okay, I'm sick of these people. You know, like that's. I mean, maybe you wanted to. I did not. I did not want to turn it off because of their performance. At points, I was a little bored because I just felt like, okay, again, it's another long monologue. The monologues bothered me a bit, but not their performances. And I think that's a little bit, you're overlooking that part of it a little bit, or not giving it enough credit.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, but I don't feel like they carried it. I feel like they buckled.
What did? What
I feel like they buckled under its weight. But that's not even. I don't think I didn't want to turn it off because their performances were so bad. I just didn't think the movie was very good, and that's more on Mr. Sam Levinson.
We're talking about the performances. I think if you and I acted in that film, people aren't getting 8 minutes into that film before they go, all right, fuck these two.
Well, I think you're wrong there, because I think that sounds like a really great film that we need to create.
I hate you. You're ugly on the inside.
You look like a fucking clown. I wish Kiki was here, because I fucking did stuff with her. You wouldn't believe it. Fucking,
I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
So I'll compliment it a little bit. I'll tell you the stuff I liked. As it started, again, I was excited not just to watch these performers, but I liked a lot of the cinematography, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized that the entire film was in black and white, and at first I'm always like, but I got used to it and I liked it. I thought it was appropriate.
Yep.
Totally worked. And I thought, that shot at the beginning where it just goes back and forth as he's pacing and she's smoking, and that was nice. I liked it. You're doing the most with what you can in this one location. I thought that was really pretty, and I thought some of the directing was really pretty. I really liked Zendaya pretending to be still addicted.
Yep.
And giving that knife speech, and like, because we were watching, we're like, what the fuck is happening now? Like, this is wild. Like, this is almost too much. Like, what, this movie's off the rails. And then she tricks everybody, right? Like, that's well done.
Acting, bro.
Yeah. Acting, bro. And then I really liked. I thought it went on for a little too long, as much of this film did. I really liked her speech at the end, like her giving his thank you speech to her. was really, really powerful. Almost even gave me a little tear after this movie that I spent an hour and a half really disliking. I really liked that moment and was still really affecting. But I think it was a tremendous mistake to not just end it there. Like, I don't know what the, it was such a miss. I'm sorry, but like end it as she gives that amazingly powerful speech that brings everything full circle. That's the first source of their problems that night. She shows them how it's done. It's a great metaphor for how great she is, how thoughtful. And then he says, "I love you, Marie." Credits. It dipped to white. Credits. Instead, there's this other thing where, and then the next morning happens or whatever, and I thought, oh my God, did she leave him?
Well, that's
I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, that was my thought process, was like, I'm mad it didn't end there. It should have ended there. But then it was like, oh, it's the next morning. Oh, did she leave him? How am I going to feel about that? And then I thought, like, this is a really interesting concept. Like, wow, it's really caught me off guard. And then she's still there. And it's like, oh, okay, so that was like a double miss.
Well,
like,
you don't know. I mean, you don't know. Maybe they're having a breakup conversation. Like, you don't know. You don't. I mean, you don't know. I didn't really understand the end, because I agree 100% that was the end. Like, the end of the film was that speech. Great speech. Couldn't agree more. Loved it. Loved her performance. Loved the knife stuff too. Like, she was really great towards the end of the film. I thought she was great all the way through, but like really, really great that last speech. So agreed, 100%. Then I was like, well, there has to be a point to that. What is the point? They had to have the same thought we did in the editing room. Hey, this is a great cut point. So why? Why is it there? Why? Then I just spent too much time thinking like, well, what does that mean? And then I went back to the original thought of from the movie, is like, you don't have to know everything. And maybe that's the point. Because doesn't he say something about like his film, like there's just like enjoy, don't interpret it, just like enjoy the art and like move on or something? Like, I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah.
So there is no point. Then I just thought, like, I guess that's the point. The point is that there is no point.
Yeah. It's a mistake. The point is it was a mistake.
Oh, okay. It was just a flat out mistake.
If it had cut at that moment, I would probably remember that film a lot more fondly because the way it ended. I'd be like, yeah, didn't love that movie. Some big flaws, but like it really stuck the landing. And that's what really matters. But now it's just like, oh, it didn't. So I don't have any fresh positive memory to look back on. I just remember how long it felt, which is another thing. I didn't realize until after the fact that it was supposed to be in real time, which I think is an interesting concept, but probably because of just the nature that it was all monologues and lots of screaming and really personal, deep insults. Like, it felt like it took forever.
Yeah, it felt long. It felt long.
It felt like, Jesus, like, how long is it? Like, Monique and I were laughing because we were like, it's got to be 7 a.m. Like, like halfway through the movie, we were like, how much has happened? Like, they've done all these things. They've fought now twice at that point. They've almost had sex 2 or 3 times. They've had macaroni. He's read a review. Like, all that, like, they're arguing. They're storming off. She gets lost outside for a minute to go pee. It's like, okay, so the sun's coming up. And then one of them's like, it's 2 a.m. Would I be up at 2 a.m. with you? It's like, it's been an hour? Like, Jesus Christ. I feel like we've been a week with these people.
We're so accustomed. I mean, that's I think part of the point I was making before. We're so accustomed to just getting blips of scenes, and we're here and we're somewhere else. We're here, we're somewhere else. We get a little bit here, we get a little bit here, and it all equals this thing, and our brain just sort of fills in these gaps. And that pacing really, really helps us adjust to this story and helps us get through this story. But this film doesn't have any of that, so it feels super, super long. And I just think it's part of the intent. And again, you could debate the merits of it, but I think the film is executed the way that it wants to be because of the production and the limitations that it had and the story it was trying to tell. You're with this one couple for a night, and they're going to blow up and make up and blow up, and you're going to experience it. The film would have been better had they been able to spread it out. So I don't take away from it.
Iman, do you have anything to say?
It's not really a big deal,
No. Okay, great. I'm sorry, Iman. I hope you don't love this movie, and I just spent an hour passionately arguing against it.
I just want to thank Iman for coming on the program. I'm so glad he was able to do it. And I'm so glad that he's confirmed that we're better friends, him and I, than you are with him.
Iman, very talented filmmaker and cinematographer in his own right. I would like to see Iman's version of this movie, because I would tell you it would be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you love this movie, Keith. God.
No, but I think Iman would do better. I always think Iman would do better.
That's real convenient, Iman. Am I right?